Hey man, there's a certain kind of man who doesn't flinch. He doesn't rush to reply. He doesn't chase after attention. He doesn't jump at every emotional wave that's thrown at him. And yet everyone feels him. Everyone notices when he speaks. Everyone leans in when he moves. He's not passive. He's not careless. He's just intentional. And this man is dangerous in the best way. Because his power doesn't come from how much he does, it comes from what he doesn't do. He never reacts first, and because of that, he stays in control of the frame, of the room, of himself. And there's a very specific psychology behind it, a mindset so rare that when a woman meets it, she either softens or spirals. The man who never reacts first isn't doing it to play games. He's not withholding because he's cold, he's withholding because he's watching. He observes before he moves. He takes in her tone, her pace, her energy, and he lets it pass through him without jumping to answer it. That delay, those few seconds of quiet, that's where his power lives. Because in that pause, he's choosing his response, not giving her the one she expected. And every time she tries to pull something out of him emotionally, and he doesn't bite, she feels it. A subtle shift, a loss of control. And what does that do? It creates tension. It sparks curiosity. It pulls her in. Most guys react out of insecurity. They need to fill the silence. They need to clarify, explain, defend. But the man who never reacts first isn't uncomfortable with silence. He uses it because he knows that silence is where people show their hand. It's where the truth leaks out. It's where she reveals what she's really feeling without him having to ask. So he waits, calm, still, observing. And the more he waits, the more she starts revealing herself. Not because he pressed her, but because she can't take the weight of his non-reaction. That's psychological gravity, and most men have no idea how powerful it is. This kind of man doesn't react to tests. She throws attitude. He doesn't flinch. She withholds attention. He doesn't chase. She pulls back. He leans inward, not toward her. And that inner leaning, that return to himself, is what makes her question everything. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he chasing? Why is he so calm? Those questions stir something deeper than attraction. They stir respect. Because now she realizes she's not dealing with a man she can pull around like a puppet. She's standing in front of a centered force. And feminine energy always yields to masculine presence when that presence holds steady. You've got to understand, emotional control is the ultimate signal of leadership. And leadership doesn't react first. Leaders assess, leaders feel, leaders wait. And when they move with purpose. The man who never reacts first doesn't rush into conversations. He lets others fill the air. He lets the energy come to him, and when he does speak, it carries weight. Why? Because he's not emotionally scattered. His words are not diluted by reactivity. They're sharp, measured, intentional. And that's what makes her listen, because his energy doesn't chase, it anchors. When a man holds this kind of composure, he becomes mysterious, not because he's hiding anything, but because he refuses to be readable. He doesn't give up his thoughts on a silver platter. He's not rushing to be understood. And that unreadability, it makes her think, it makes her wonder, it makes her chase clarity. And the more she chases clarity, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Now you flip the dynamic, not through games, but through discipline. And that discipline creates psychological depth. She starts seeing you as a man of substance, not just another surface-level smooth talker. Even in conflict, this man doesn't react first. She raises her voice, he lowers his tone. She rushes to win the argument. He listens without breaking eye contact. And because he's not reactive, he never gets pulled into her emotional chaos. He doesn't feed the fire, he outlasts it. And when the fire burns out, and she's sitting in the ashes of her own outburst, she looks at him, and she sees a man who didn't move. That's when her guard falls. That's when she feels safe. Not because he was passive, but because he never stopped leading emotionally. The man who doesn't react first also commands a different kind of attention. Not loud, not demanding, just consistent. He's the man who walks into a room and doesn't try to be seen, but people turn to look anyway, because his stillness speaks louder than their noise. His eyes don't dart. His shoulders don't tense. His voice doesn't try to carry. He just is. And when she meets that energy, when she feels that level of groundedness, she starts asking herself, who is this guy? Not because he's performing, but because he's not performing at all. When you live like this, your relationships change. You stop being the one who overtexts, who needs to clear the air every time, who has to respond to every mood swing. You become the man who pauses, who makes her sit in silence and wonder. That wondering, it drives her to check in, to show up, to invest. Because now, your energy has become rare, and rare energy is always chased. This man doesn't give reactions, he gives reflections. If she disrespects, he doesn't argue, he just backs away and lets her feel the absence of his energy. If she tests, he doesn't push back, he waits. And in that waiting, she starts to unravel her own motives. She starts self-correcting, because nothing forces someone to reflect like the absence of a reaction. You didn't fight her, you didn't try to fix her, you just held the line. And that line, that emotional standard, it forces her to rise or walk. Either way, you kept your frame, and that's leadership. He becomes the kind of man she can't shake. Not because he was dramatic, not because he begged, not because he made grand gestures, but because he made her feel small next to his stillness. She knows, even in her most emotional moments, that she's dealing with someone who can't be emotionally hijacked, and deep down, that gives her peace. Because a woman doesn't truly want to lead the emotional tone, she wants to feel the structure of a man who already has it under control. The man who never reacts first is that structure. He doesn't resist her energy, he absorbs it, redirects it, and stays rooted in himself. This man doesn't get manipulated. He doesn't get lured into emotional traps. He doesn't respond to ultimatums or dramatics with panic. He just observes. He measures her words. He watches her actions. And only then, if it's worth it, he chooses his response. That gap between stimulus and response, that pause is what makes him emotionally bulletproof. And that's the kind of man who wins long term, because he doesn't burn himself out trying to be everywhere, please everyone, or fight every battle. He selects his battles and wins them with precision. Even outside of relationships, this psychological edge makes him stand out. In business, in friendship, in leadership, people feel the difference. He's not trying to impress. He's not easily provoked. He's not seeking approval. He's slow to anger and even slower to chase. And that's what gives his energy weight. When he finally does speak, people listen. When he finally does act, people follow. Because they've learned that when this man moves, he's already made up his mind. That decisiveness, that presence, it's the byproduct of not reacting first, of letting the noise settle before moving. The man who never reacts first is also free from the emotional roller coaster that destroys most men. He's not checking his phone every 10 minutes. He's not refreshing for validation. He's not anxiously waiting to see if she's pulling away. Why? Because he's not addicted to response. He's devoted to alignment. And when you're aligned, you move from purpose, not panic. You're not on her emotional leash. You're walking your own path. And if she joins you, good. If she doesn't, you're still unmoved. Because the only validation that matters is your own reflection, and that reflection is calm. Now here's the twist. When you stop reacting, she starts reacting more. The silence you leave behind becomes louder than any reply. The time you take before responding makes her more invested in what you'll say. The moment you hesitate, she leans forward, and the more you hold your frame, the more she wants to earn her way back into it, because she's not used to that kind of control. She's used to men flooding her with emotional attention. But now, she's dealing with a man whose energy doesn't just land, it leads. She may push harder, she may test more, she may throw everything she has at your calm. But that's not a sign of disrespect. It's her trying to find your edge, trying to see if there's a crack in your stillness. And when she finds none, when she sees that you can handle her at her worst without becoming your worst, that's when trust takes root. That's when loyalty grows. That's when she starts choosing you over and over. Not because you chased her, but because you were the only one she couldn't move emotionally without effort. This man doesn't get high off her attention, and he doesn't crumble at her distance. He's emotionally anchored, and that makes him rare, valuable, hard to forget. She may not always agree with him, she may not always understand him, but she feels him consistently, and consistency is sexy. Consistency is attractive, because consistency means safety. Not safety in weakness, but safety in strength. She knows this man won't lose himself for anyone, and ironically, that's what makes her want to give more of herself to him. Eventually, she realizes this man is different, not because he said so, not because he posted some deep quote, but because she experienced it. He never tried to prove it, he just was it. From the way he listened without rushing to speak, to the way he held eye contact without blinking, to the way he could walk away from her chaos without raising his voice. She saw it, she felt it, she respected it, and that respect turned into emotional desire. Because no woman forgets the man she couldn't shake with her storms. So if you're wondering how to flip the script, how to earn deep respect without saying too much, how to lead without being loud, start here. Don't react first. Breathe, wait, observe. Let her show her hand. Let her speak first. Let her chase your clarity. Let her experience the weight of your restraint. Because in that silence, in that calm, in that emotional distance, you don't lose power. You become it. Because in the end, the man who reacts first always loses his center, but the man who doesn't, he makes others orbit his frame. He becomes the axis, the calm in the storm, the leader in the room, the man whose silence says everything. So stop reacting, start observing, and watch how the entire world, especially her, starts moving differently around you.